Well, here we are. We've made it to the final day, and it's been a great adventure again to sit down here and go through all these memories. Like, what is it? Half a year, 3/4 of a year later. There's so much about this that did not go the way I hoped it would go. And before I show you what happened on this final day, I just wanted to sit down again and give you a little bit more information. And I know that a lot of what I've presented here has been kind of dramatic, and of course I've put dramatic music under it. Every episode's been kind of a cliffhanger. I've been getting a lot of really great feedback from you. Thank you for your interest in these videos and following me on this adventure. And like I said, I know I've been doing my best to make them very engaging, but it was dramatic. It was emotional for me. And this is also gonna sound really dramatic, but I think that what happened on that week changed a lot for me about this goal I had of learning more about sailing. It also changed a lot of my self-confidence in situations like that. And a lot of it was just not good. So we're about to jump to the final morning that I spent on that boat after another completely sleepless night of the boat whipping back and forth in the wind, of being with a captain that none of us got along with or trusted, and that's a very important word. In a situation where you feel unsafe, if the person who's in charge is somebody you really trust, then that's a different thing. But we all agreed that it seemed like this guy was not somebody to trust. So in a conversation just between the two of us that morning, he had already told me that the weather report was not favorable, that it was extremely unlikely that we would be continuing the journey that day, and the plan was on that day to sail to our final destination and spend the final night in the harbor on Naxos. And then there's always a big goodbye festival on that evening. And he said, that's basically not gonna happen. We have to stay in that bay for as long as possible until it's safe to sail over and until there is a place in the harbor. And I know he cannot control the weather. None of that is his fault. But like I said, if he had done more to prove his knowledge by maybe sharing some of it with us, by being open to questions, by previously in the week being patient and teaching us some things. And there are sailing journeys where the main goal is to learn about sailing, to get more certification, to gain another license, things like that. This was not one of those journeys. This was basically just a vacation. It said no previous sailing experience was necessary. And on the first evening, he spoke with all of us about our experience and asked us if we'd be willing to do more or less. And I told him from the very beginning, I want to do as much as possible, but I have almost no experience. So I just want to put that out there. He can't control the weather, I know that, and this was not a learning journey anyways. But after he said we won't be continuing sailing and we're going to spend a third sleepless night there in that horrible situation, I decided I can't do this. There's no reason for me to stay here. It's time for me to go. And everything I just said, I did record a version of that later that day when I finally got to my hotel. But when I was watching it here while editing, it's just so watered down that I decided I need to sit down here and tell you the real deal. It's like when you're at a party and you just realize it's not gonna get any better from this point. In fact, it's probably gonna be worse. That's the time to go. And that's kind of how I felt on the ship that day. So early that morning, after talking with the skipper, I made a decision. We're gonna jump into that morning and I'll be back here in a second. Been up for a little while now. Everybody else is still in bed. I wouldn't say they're asleep. I don't know if anybody's asleep, but at least, yeah, nobody else except for the skipper is. out of their cabin this morning, and I looked at the weather and just looked at what it's like outside, and I've decided that I am going to ask the skipper what else I need to do here on board, what duties I have in order to be sort of released from this journey. I think it's time for me to stop, and I want to spend tonight on land. I mean, we're supposed to finish in Naxos anyways, but because of the weather and because of the forecast and because of all the wind, we don't know if we can leave here. Well, we could leave here, but what we don't know is if when we get to Naxos, there's a place in the marina, and there's no place to book one or reserve one in advance. And he was saying it could be that we have to stay here in this bay with this wind, with the ship whipping back and forth. Could be that we have to stay here another night, and then the next crew who are supposed to board on Saturday, he said they'll stay in your hotels and you'll stay on board. And I do not approve that suggestion, so I've decided to be better safe than sorry, and I'm going to ask if I can leave today. When I told him, listen, please don't take this personal, but I think it's better for me if I leave today, the first thing he said was, how are you going to do that? And once again, Sassy Morgan came out just a little bit, and I said, well, I'm going to put my stuff in the dinghy boat. Somebody is going to start the motor, and we're going to go over to land, and then I'm going to get out of the dinghy boat, and then I'll be gone. That's how this is going to work. I hate that guy brought that out of me. I mean, I know I'm responsible for my behavior, but I don't usually act like that. And I asked him again politely, please let me know, what do I need to do here on board before I leave so there are no loose ends? And I would like to remind you again that I was paying to be there. He was not paying me, but still, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt and be polite, and I didn't want to leave anything there that also maybe some of the other people who were on board were going to have to do because I wasn't there. He basically said, no, if you want to go, you can go, fine, no problem. And after that, things happened really quickly. I went up, talked to one of the more experienced people on board, told him, listen, I'm leaving. Would you drive me over to land in the dinghy? He's like, yeah, no problem, but let's do it soon. So I went down, I grabbed my bag, I said a quick goodbye to everybody and hopped in the dinghy, and then that was that. And on the ride back over to land, I was filled with so many emotions. Of course, a lot of happiness, just because I thought, good, I don't have to spend another night in this situation. Maybe I will finally be able to get some sleep again. It had been 2 nights since I had really any sleep at all. And not only was it not sleeping, but it was a feeling of danger, which would have been totally different if I had trusted the person in charge. I did not want to spend another night in that situation. I felt like, okay, am I quitting? Am I giving up here? Is this a sign that I'm not made to be somebody who should sail more? It was a very turbulent moment for me, of course, heightened by not sleeping in 2 days. I got to land, jumped out, gave the other crew member who drove me over a high five, and then I was done.
It's a little bit crazy. You're suddenly blurry now. I wonder if anything was real. All our history's hazy, like driving in the pouring rain. Are we in too deep to heal?
Okay, there's one more very important event that I have to tell you about before I continue with the videos from back then. That morning, the captain told me that it is extremely unlikely that we will be leaving the bay that day, that we have to stay there for safety reasons and because there is no place to go in Naxos. All the slips in the harbor are full. So it had been about 45 minutes since I got in the dinghy before I got to the ferry port and had bought a ferry ticket. And the first thing I did was take out my telephone because I wanted to send a picture of it to Marcus, who had no idea what was going on. And I got a WhatsApp from somebody who was back on our vessel saying, so all of a sudden the captain has decided we can leave. We're battening the hatches and sailing away. Not even an hour later. I don't know if all of a sudden the weather forecast changed or if all of a sudden magically everything was okay, because just a couple hours earlier he was saying, nope, no way we're leaving here today. Then as soon as I decide, all right, I need to leave then, I can't stay here another day, all of a sudden, let's go sailing. And that made me so much more upset about the whole thing. Not because I wished I had stayed, but just, I thought, what an a-hole. I spoke with the other sailors on board and they said that the night in the harbor then on Naxos was even worse than being in the bay because the wind was still so strong, the seas were very rough. In the bay, the ship was swinging left and right on the anchor chain, but in the marina on Naxos, it was banging into the wall. And in the morning, the night had been so rough that in the morning, 2 of the lines that they had used to attach to land had been almost worn through. So I'm glad that I was done. They invited me to come and have dinner with them, and I didn't go. I actually went and got some nachos. So I spent about an hour exploring the area around the ferry port, which was also just a really cool, picture-perfect Greek city, until my ferry came and I took the ferry over to Naxos, which was our final destination.
I know it ain't easy, but there's something left to hold on to. We can work it through, you don't have to go. There's a future here with me. We'll find the light in a clouded room. Not giving up until you know. You tell me that you're sorry, you will make up tomorrow. Tell me everything
So I think this is the airport. A couple days have gone by now. I had a great time here on the island of Naxos, relaxing, having some good food, not only Greek food, but also some nachos. Nachos on Naxos is a thing. And as I'm waiting for this very small plane to land at this very small airport, I'm just trying to reflect on the whole experience. And I think even though knowing what I know now, I still think I made the right decision for me. Sometimes your goals change. You have to take another path to get to the same destination. And I think the path that I took this time was the right one.